Part 1. The Lonely Man Amidst Glamour. Ethan Cooper, 35, sat silently in the luxurious office on the top floor of the building that bore his name. The lights from the surrounding skyscrapers shimmered in red and green hues of Christmas, but their glow could not dispel the darkness within him. Outside, the city was immersed in a festive atmosphere, but for Ethan, Christmas only stirred memories he had always wanted to forget. From a young age, Christmas was not a season of joy or reunion for Ethan, but a series of painful memories. His parents, both busy and emotionally distant, frequently argued, especially during the holidays. While other children eagerly unwrapped gifts and gathered with family, Ethan would retreat to a corner of the room, trying to ignore the shouting echoing from the living room. He vividly remembered Christmas when he was 8. His mother quietly prepared dinner while his father was nowhere to be found, lost in his work. "We'll eat when your dad comes home," his mother said, but that dinner never happened. The Christmas tree was sparsely decorated with dimly blinking lights, and the only gift he received was a cheap toy car his mother had hastily bought from a nearby store. It wasn't because she didn't love him, but because she was too exhausted to care. At 12, the painful memories became even more deeply ingrained. That was the first time his parents tried to appear normal during Christmas dinner. They laughed and talked as if nothing had happened. And for a fleeting moment, Ethan thought that things might change. But as soon as dinner was over, they pulled him aside and announced that they were getting a divorce. That night, under the blinking lights of the Christmas tree, Ethan sat alone, staring at the unopened presents, unable to hold back his tears. From then on, every Christmas became a cruel reminder of his misfortune. As he grew up, Ethan tried to build a life that left no room for those memories. He threw himself into his work, achieving successes others could only dream of. But success couldn't heal the wounds in his heart. Despite having everything, wealth, fame, and power, his heart remained empty, and Christmas was still just a season he longed to escape. This year was no exception. Sitting in his office, Ethan stared at the glass of red wine on the table, its bitterness mirroring the loneliness he felt. The crowds on the street seemed even busier, the distant laughter and chatter only amplifying his emptiness. Leaning back in his chair, Ethan closed his eyes, trying to push away the painful memories. But they always returned. For Ethan, Christmas was not a warm holiday, but a season of unending sorrow, a season of wounds he had never found a way to heal. Part 2. The Woman Who Failed in Love. Sophia Green, 28, worked at a small cafe tucked away in a quiet corner of the city. She had bright eyes and a gentle smile, but behind her radiant exterior lay a heart that had endured many wounds. Sophia once believed in love, thinking that as long as she lived sincerely, happiness would find her. But life didn't unfold as she had hoped. Sophia's past relationships all ended in disappointment. She always gave her heart fully to the men she loved, only to discover that they saw her as a temporary choice, a stopover when they felt empty. They adored her smile, but none stayed long enough to witness her tears. She became the one to fill the void in their lives, but once they found what they needed, she was left behind. Most recently, Sophia had devoted 3 years of her youth to a man she thought would be her safe haven. But on a cold winter evening, he confessed that he had fallen for someone else, leaving her in a dark, chilly room with pain and unanswered questions. After that, Sophia vowed that she would no longer trust in love so easily. Despite her emotional scars, Sophia refused to let them rob her of her optimism. She reminded herself that life wasn't solely about love. Instead of seeking happiness from others, she began focusing on creating joy for herself and those around her. She continued to smile, but now it wasn't for anyone else. It was because she wanted to live better. During the holidays, especially Christmas, Sophia often participated in charity events. She loved the feeling of bringing joy to others, even if it was just through small gifts or a warm meal for the homeless. To her, seeing the happiness in their eyes helped her forget her own sadness. Those moments reminded her that life still held many beautiful things as long as she kept striving forward. Sophia no longer pinned her hopes on love as she once did, but she believed that one day life would compensate her for what she had lost. Until then, she chose to move forward slowly, living each day fully for herself. In Sophia's world, Kindness and sincerity were the guiding lights that helped her hold on to her faith in a brighter future. Part 3. A chance encounter on the street. On Christmas Eve, the city sparkled with lights, and the festive atmosphere filled every corner. But for Ethan, the glamour only highlighted his loneliness. Leaving his office with aimless steps, he didn't know where he was going. He just wanted to escape the suffocating emptiness weighing on his heart. As he walked through bustling main streets, past brightly lit storefronts and streams of people, Ethan felt like an outsider in the world. He kept moving, letting his feet lead the way. Soon he found himself on a smaller, quieter street, made warmer by the soft glow of twinkling lights strung across old windows. At a corner, Ethan noticed a small crowd gathered around a modestly decorated truck. The atmosphere here was entirely different, not the loud chatter of parties, but a heartfelt warmth from people sharing simple Christmas gifts with one another. Ethan paused as his eyes were drawn to a young woman wearing a green sweater, standing out amidst the crowd. She was carefully handing out packages to the homeless, her gentle smile radiating warmth that seemed to brighten everything around her. Each gift came with a kind word, a nod, or sometimes a few sincere questions. He couldn't look away. There was something special about her, a warmth he had never encountered before. A strange but comforting feeling began to stir in his chest, compelling him to stop and watch. At that moment, an elderly man stumbled forward to receive his gift, but accidentally dropped his bag. Almost instinctively, Ethan stepped forward, bent down, and picked up the bag to hand it back to him. "Thank you," a soft voice spoke beside him. Ethan looked up and met the woman's gaze. Her eyes held curiosity and a hint of gratitude, as if she hadn't expected a stranger like him to help so naturally. "Are you here to help hand out gifts?" she asked, her gentle smile still lingering on her lips. Ethan hesitated, feeling a strange sense of awkwardness at being addressed this way. "No, I was just passing by," he replied, his voice slightly unsure. Sophia, the young woman, smiled at the honesty in his response. "If you have time, we could always use an extra pair of hands," she said, her voice carrying an irresistible sincerity. Under the soft golden glow of the streetlights, her gaze and words left Ethan feeling unable to refuse. He nodded even though he wasn't entirely sure why he agreed. This was the first time he had done something so unplanned. Together with Sophie, Ethan started handing out the last of the gifts. He listened to her as she spoke to the homeless, each word imbued with genuine care and compassion, something he had never seen in anyone else. In those brief moments, her smile and the way she treated others made Ethan feel as if a layer of ice within him was starting to melt. What began as a solitary and aimless Christmas Eve for Ethan transformed into a meaningful moment. He couldn't quite explain the feeling, but he knew that this woman, with her gentle smile, had done something extraordinary. She had soothed the hidden pain in his heart. Part 4. The Transformation. Since the evening he met Sophia by chance, her image lingered constantly in Ethan's mind. He couldn't forget the gentleness in her eyes and the sincerity in her smile, something he hadn't seen in anyone for years. It seemed Sophia was the first person to see him, not as a successful millionaire, but as an ordinary man. That warmth made him, for the first time in years, want to break down the emotional walls he had built around himself. The next morning, Ethan decided to visit Sophia's cafe. He found his way to the small corner shop where the sunlight filtered through the glass windows, filling the space with a sense of peace. Sophia stood behind the counter, busy making coffee for customers. When she saw him, she paused briefly, but quickly offered a smile. "Hello," Sophia said, her voice gentle but unable to hide her curiosity. "I didn't expect to see you here." Ethan tried to appear relaxed, though he felt a bit awkward inside. "Hi. Actually, I heard the coffee here is very good, so I thought I'd come back to try it again." Sophia laughed softly, placing a freshly made cup of coffee on the counter. "So what would you like to try today? I'll make you my favorite." "You decide," Ethan replied, watching her intently as she began to prepare his drink. "I don't think you'll disappoint me." Sophia tilted her head and smiled. "You trust me that much?" Ethan didn't answer immediately. He shrugged and smiled faintly. "Maybe I trust you more than I thought." Ethan's visits to the cafe became more frequent. At first, their conversations were casual, but over time, they delved deeper into more meaningful topics. One quiet afternoon, when the cafe was nearly empty, Ethan finally opened up about the pain of his childhood. The Christmas night filled with arguments that haunted him for years. "When I was a child, Christmas wasn't a time of joy for me," Ethan said, his gaze drifting into the distance. "That night, my parents had a terrible fight. Right in front of the Christmas tree, they announced they were getting a divorce. I remember sitting there all night, staring at the blinking lights on the tree, wondering why everything had fallen apart." Sophia listened silently, her hand gently resting on the coffee cup in front of her. "I'm so sorry, Ethan. Those memories must be hard to overcome." Ethan smirked bitterly. "I thought that if I never opened up, no one could hurt me. But the more I avoided it, the lonelier I felt." Sophia nodded slightly, her eyes filled with understanding. "I've felt the same way," she said, her voice soft like a whisper. "After failed relationships, I started to believe that maybe love wasn't meant for me. But then I realized that isolating myself only made it worse." Ethan looked at Sophia, his gaze softening. "You're unlike anyone I've ever met. Honest, sincere, and never pretending to be someone you're not." Sophia smiled. "Then I think we can help each other. You could start by joining me at a charity gift drive. I could always use an extra pair of hands." Ethan hesitated at first, but the enthusiasm in Sophia's eyes made it impossible to refuse. The gift drive took place the following evening on a quiet street. Standing side by side, Sophia and Ethan handed out warm meals and blankets to the homeless. Sophia spoke to each person with her natural kindness, while Ethan, initially awkward, gradually found himself at ease. "Do you do this often?" Ethan asked during a short break, sipping some hot tea. Sophia nodded. "I do it every Christmas. Seeing them smile makes me feel like I'm making a difference." Ethan looked at Sophia, his eyes reflecting admiration. "You're truly remarkable, Sophia. I don't think I've ever met anyone who lives for others as much as you do." Sophia chuckled softly, her eyes warm and kind. "Sometimes helping others is a way to heal ourselves. What about you, Ethan? When was the last time you felt truly happy?" Her question made Ethan pause. He didn't answer immediately, but deep down, he knew that this moment, standing beside Sophia, was the first time in years he had felt a small yet genuine happiness. From then on, their meetings were no longer by chance but became an unspoken habit. Ethan began to open up more, while Sophia slowly regained her trust in love. Each moment they spent together, whether distributing gifts, chatting at the cafe, or taking walks under the streetlights, helped bridge the gap between them and heal the wounds they had carried. They realized that the scars of their past had brought them closer, like pieces of a puzzle completing a beautiful picture. Part 5. A Meaningful Christmas. 1 year after their fateful meeting, Ethan and Sophia had become an indispensable part of each other's lives. They were not just companions, but also healers of each other's wounds. On Christmas Eve, Sophia unexpectedly suggested something Ethan had always avoided, returning home to spend Christmas with his family. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Ethan asked, his eyes hesitant as he looked at Sophia. They were sitting together beside the small Christmas tree Sophia had decorated herself. Sophia took his hand, her gaze filled with encouragement. "Ethan, they are your family. I believe it's time you face this fear. Besides, I want to meet them, the people who raised the man I love." Sophia's words filled Ethan with warmth and a newfound confidence. He nodded, though a trace of uncertainty still lingered. "All right, then we'll go," he said, gently squeezing her hand. That evening, as Ethan and Sophia arrived at his parents' cozy home, Ethan's emotions were in turmoil. Standing in front of the house, adorned with bright Christmas lights, he felt his heart pounding. Memories from the past washed over him like a tidal wave. Arguments, tense Christmas nights, and the painful moment of separation. He took a deep breath, as if bracing himself to step into a place both familiar and foreign. Sophia, noticing the hesitation in his eyes, gently placed her hand on his back. "I'm here," she whispered, her voice soft yet reassuring. "You don't have to face this alone." Ethan nodded, mustering his courage to knock on the door. When the door opened and his mother, Margaret, appeared with a radiant smile, he froze momentarily. She stepped forward and hugged him tightly, without a moment's hesitation. The warmth of his mother's embrace took Ethan by surprise. How long had it been since he felt such unconditional love? His heart seemed to pause, and the emotional walls he had built over the years began to tremble. Inside the house, his father, Richard, waited with a calm expression and a gentle smile. Despite the family's past turmoil, his parents now exuded a strange sense of peace. Ethan felt something stir within him, a faint glimmer of hope that perhaps families could truly change. "This is Sophia," Ethan introduced, his voice tender as he looked at her. "The person who helped me understand the true meaning of Christmas." Sophia bowed politely, her sincere smile instantly winning over both Margaret and Richard. "Hello, Sophia," Margaret said, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you for bringing Ethan back to us." Those words lifted an invisible weight from Ethan's chest. He hadn't expected his mother to say such things, nor had he realized the profound connections Sophia had created between him and his family. Throughout the dinner, Ethan initially felt out of place. He sat quietly, observing everything around him as though he were a spectator in his own family story. The laughter, the warmth between Sophia and his parents left him both confused and intrigued. This was his family, the people he had distanced himself from, yet they seemed so different now. Slowly, the sense of estrangement gave way to curiosity. When Sophia joined his mother in the kitchen to prepare dessert, Ethan stayed behind with his father. Richard began recounting stories of the past, of mistakes, losses, and how he and Margaret had found peace together. Ethan listened silently, saying nothing, but a peculiar feeling began to rise within him: forgiveness. He no longer felt anger or resentment as he once did. Instead, he realized that everyone deserves the chance to heal and mend their mistakes. As the dinner drew to a close, Ethan looked around the living room. Sophia was smiling as she chatted with his mother, while his father relaxed with a glass of wine. The atmosphere was filled with warmth and laughter. A wave of emotion suddenly swept over Ethan. This was no longer the house burdened with painful memories he once remembered. It was now a place of love and reunion. His heart, frozen by old wounds, began to thaw. He realized that he had not only found peace with his family, but also within himself. It was Sophia's gentle encouragement that had led him to this moment, a moment where he finally allowed himself to let go and feel. "Ethan," his mother called softly, pulling him from his thoughts. "I'm so glad you're here." Ethan smiled faintly, a smile he hadn't expected to wear on Christmas Eve. "I'm glad to be here too, Mom," he replied, his voice deep but genuine. A little while later, Ethan stood up, gently tapping his wine glass to draw everyone's attention. The room fell silent, and the twinkling lights of the Christmas tree reflected in everyone's eyes. Sophia looked up, her gaze filled with curiosity. Ethan took a deep breath, his eyes soft as they met Sophia's. "Sophia," he began, his warm voice resonating in the quiet room, "you've changed my life in ways I never thought possible. You've taught me that wounds don't have to stop us from being happy. They can lead us to someone who truly understands us." Sophia froze for a moment, her eyes beginning to glisten with tears. "I don't just want to share a Christmas season with you," Ethan continued, his gaze shining like the lights on the tree, "but the rest of my life. Will you marry me?" The room seemed to pause for a moment. Sophia raised her hand to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. She nodded, her voice trembling. "Yes, I will." Cheers and blessings erupted from everyone. Margaret embraced Sophia warmly, while Richard patted Ethan's shoulder with pride. Ethan stepped forward, placing a sparkling ring on Sophia's finger, and they held each other in pure joy. That Christmas Eve was filled with laughter, warm lights, and the joy of reunion. Ethan realized that, thanks to Sophia, he had not only found love, but also rediscovered his family and the true meaning of Christmas. It was no longer a holiday he wanted to forget, but a new beginning, full of hope and love. Part 6. A New Journey. After their warm yet simple wedding, Ethan and Sophia embarked on a new journey filled with grand plans, not just for themselves, but for their community. Ethan, leveraging his vast wealth and influence, began investing in philanthropic projects. He founded a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing shelter and reintegration support for the homeless, inspired by the charity drives he and Sophia had participated in. Sophia, with her unwavering passion for coffee, transformed her small cafe into a special gathering place. She created a warm, welcoming space where anyone, regardless of their background or circumstances, could find comfort in a cup of coffee. Sophia's cafe was not just a place for drinks, but a hub where people shared stories, organized donation drives, and spread love and kindness. "Do you think what we're doing is enough?" Sophia asked one morning as she and Ethan sat on their porch, watching the soft snowflakes fall. Ethan placed his hand over hers, his eyes filled with determination. "It will never be enough, but as long as we start, the good will continue to grow." Together, they fully immersed themselves in every project. Sophia organized skill-building workshops for homeless youth, while Ethan established a scholarship fund to give underprivileged children access to education. They weren't just leaders but active participants, serving free meals, hosting inspirational workshops, and building personal connections with those they helped. Every Christmas, Ethan and Sophia hosted a large celebration at their nonprofit organization. Those who had once been helped returned as volunteers, creating an unending circle of love and support. At these gatherings, people laughed, shared meals, and told stories about how their lives had been transformed. "Look at this," Ethan said to Sophia on a Christmas evening as they stood under the twinkling lights of a large Christmas tree at the center of the organization. "All of this started with a spilled cup of coffee on the street." Sophia laughed, her eyes shining with pride and happiness. "And I think you were right to return to the cafe that day." Ethan held her hand, his voice warm and heartfelt. "It was the best decision of my life. And since then, you've made everything better." Christmas was no longer a time of pain or memories of failure. For Ethan and Sophia, it had become a symbol of love, hope, and healing. They found happiness in each other and shared it with those around them. Their story is a living testament that sometimes the most wounded hearts are the ones capable of giving the deepest love. From the pain of their past, Ethan and Sophia wrote a new, meaningful chapter, inspiring others to see that no matter what you've been through, hope is always within reach if you're willing to open your heart and give love. Thank you for listening to this story. Let us know your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss more inspiring stories. Part 1. The Lonely Man. Mark Ellison, a successful millionaire at the age of 38, lived in a grand mansion perched atop a hill where the city lights below resembled tiny twinkling stars in the night. His mansion was an architectural masterpiece, with glass walls reflecting the surrounding nature and interiors meticulously designed down to the smallest detail. Yet despite its beauty and luxury, it only emphasized the emptiness within him. Mark was once a brilliant investor whose every decision brought immense profits. He was renowned for his sharp analytical skills and strategic vision, a man who stood at the pinnacle of the financial world. But everything changed forever on Christmas Eve the previous year. That night, on his way home from a lavish party, Mark was involved in a severe car accident. His car skidded on the icy road and crashed into a large tree. He woke up in the hospital, surrounded by complete darkness. The doctors informed him that brain damage had caused his loss of vision, and they weren't sure if his eyesight could ever recover. Since then, Mark had lived in darkness, not only physically but also emotionally. The days following the accident were bleak and somber. He gradually withdrew, rejecting invitations and cutting off social interactions. Friends who once knew him as a lively and strong-willed man drifted away. Mark communicated only with his assistant and a few trusted employees, keeping the outside world at arm's length. This Christmas Eve, the cold air seeped through the glass panes of his mansion, carrying the chill of winter. Mark sat alone in the vast living room, where a perfectly decorated Christmas tree sparkled with lights, and neatly wrapped presents lay beneath it. These weren't gifts for anyone. They were merely items arranged by the housekeeper to create the proper Christmas vibe. Mark fiddled with a glass of wine in his hand but didn't drink. He only felt the chill of the glass, as if it were a reminder of the cold, meaningless existence he now lived. "Christmas," he murmured, his voice echoing in the empty room. "A day for people to share joy. But for me, it's just another day in the dark." Outside, snow fell heavily, covering everything in a pristine white blanket. But within Mark's heart, there was only an unending, frigid winter. Welcome to this meaningful Christmas story. Let us know which city in the world you're tuning in from. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any inspiring stories. Part 2. Encountering a Miracle. This Christmas Eve, the city was engulfed by a fierce snowstorm. Snow fell thickly, blanketing every road and dimming the glow of the streetlights. In the hilltop mansion, Mark Ellison sat by the window, listening to the sound of the wind howling against the glass panes. He had no plans for the night. Like every year, the holiday was just another evening for him to confront his solitude. "Mark, there's a charity event tonight at the homeless shelter," said James, his longtime assistant, with a tone of gentle persuasion. "They're in desperate need of help. It's a chance for you to get out and do something meaningful." "James, you know I'm not good at this sort of thing," Mark replied, his tone indifferent but not entirely dismissive. He didn't know what prompted him to change his mind in that moment. Perhaps it was the urge to escape the monotony or a quiet longing to feel the true spirit of Christmas. Eventually he nodded. The snowstorm made the journey to the shelter challenging, but Mark didn't mind. Guided by James, he stepped into a warm room where the glow of candles and fairy lights created a cozy atmosphere. Laughter, hushed conversations, and the clinking of bowls being passed around filled the space with a lively energy. Mark, his sightless eyes unseeing, quietly sat in a corner. He could sense the bustle around him, hurried footsteps and murmured words of gratitude. Everything felt unfamiliar until he heard a voice. "Would you like some more soup? Let me ladle some for you." The voice was gentle, warm, and naturally enthusiastic. Though he couldn't see, Mark imagined a young woman with a radiant smile. It was Emma, a young volunteer and kindergarten teacher who dedicated herself to helping those in need. To Emma, Christmas was more than just a holiday. It was an opportunity to spread love and kindness to the less fortunate. As Emma walked past where Mark was sitting, she noticed a quiet man amidst the lively atmosphere. She paused, crouched down, and gently asked, "Would you like some hot cocoa? Or maybe a cookie? It's Christmas Eve after all. We should celebrate." Mark was startled by her friendliness, but found it surprisingly comforting. "I'm not hungry," he replied, his voice low and a bit hesitant. Emma sat down beside him, unwilling to let the silence stretch. "I'm Emma. And you?" she asked, her eyes bright, even though she didn't immediately receive a response. "Mark," he replied simply, wondering to himself why he answered so easily. Normally, he would avoid unnecessary conversation. Emma didn't press for more. She didn't pry into his past or ask why he was there. To her, Mark was just someone who needed to be heard and understood on this special night. "Christmas Eve is a time for miracles," she said, a smile evident in her tone. "Do you believe in them?" Mark was silent for a moment before replying slowly, "I'm not sure. I think I lost hope a long time ago." "Hope never truly disappears," Emma said with quiet conviction. "It's just hidden by darkness. But I believe light always finds its way back." Her words, along with the sincerity in her voice, touched something deep within Mark's heart. He couldn't explain why, but for the first time in a year, he felt a faint glimmer of light within his soul. That glimmer, however fragile, was enough to make him want to believe in miracles. From that moment on, Mark no longer felt alone on Christmas Eve. Emma, with her kindness and enthusiasm, brought him something he hadn't experienced in a long time, a sense of hope and a connection he thought he had lost forever. Part 3. A Journey of Change. Since that Christmas Eve, Mark Ellison's life was no longer the same. For the first time in a year of drowning in darkness and loneliness, he felt a faint glimmer of light in his soul, and it came from a woman named Emma. Her presence was like a fresh breeze, bringing hope and changes Mark never thought he could experience. Emma didn't see Mark as a powerful millionaire or a man who had lost his sight. To her, he was simply a person in need of help, a wounded soul that needed healing. She visited his mansion almost daily, bringing not only stories but also the belief that life could still be beautiful, even without sight. At first, Mark wasn't used to Emma's presence. He had grown accustomed to isolating himself, keeping his distance from others, and hesitating to open up. But Emma, with her gentle and patient demeanor, gradually broke down those barriers. Do you think you might like books? Emma asked one day as she brought a collection of audiobooks. She played a short excerpt from a famous novel and described its details with vivid storytelling. Can you imagine the sunlight filtering through the trees in the early morning? Or the feeling of walking on a cobblestone path after a rain? Mark smiled for the first time in months. Maybe I need you to be my tour guide for my imagination, he said, his deep voice lighter than before. Day by day, their conversations grew longer and deeper. Emma told him stories about the children in her class, carefree but full of curiosity about the world. In return, Mark began sharing stories of his life before the accident, the bold decisions he had once made in the business world, and the ambitions he had held. Emma didn't just bring books and stories. She encouraged Mark to step outside and experience the world in new ways. One morning, she gently took his hand and said, "Come on, you can't just stay inside forever. The snow is beautiful today." Mark hesitated but eventually agreed. Emma led him to the expansive garden blanketed in snow. She guided his hand to touch the bare branches, letting him feel the coolness of the snow as she described every small detail. "Listen," she said, "the sound of snow crunching under your feet. It's like nature's music." Mark closed his eyes, focusing on the sounds around him. It wasn't just the snow crunching underfoot. It was the wind rustling through the branches, the distant chirping of a bird lost in winter, and Emma's laughter teasing him about his overly cautious steps. These walks became a routine. With Emma by his side, the outside world no longer felt foreign. He realized that even without sight, he could still perceive the beauty of life through his other senses, through sound, touch, and Emma's vivid guidance. Emma wasn't just a companion. She became the driving force behind Mark's transformation. One day, as they sat by the fireplace, Emma looked at him seriously. "Mark, have you ever thought that you could still make a difference? Even without sight, you have strength, a kind heart, and resources that so many people need." Mark was silent for a long moment. Her words made him think. Before, he had believed he had no value after losing his vision. But now he began to understand that a person's worth isn't defined by what they've lost, but by what they still have and are willing to share. Mark started by funding the homeless shelter where Emma volunteered. He didn't stop at financial contributions. He actively participated in organizing programs to help the poor. With Emma's guidance, he listened to the stories of the less fortunate, learning to empathize and understand their struggles. Emma smiled proudly as she saw Mark becoming more engaged in these gatherings. He was no longer the reclusive man he once was, but had grown into an inspiration for many. He used his connections and influence to persuade other business leaders to join charitable efforts. Mark's transformation wasn't just in his actions, but in his soul. He no longer felt like a victim of fate. Instead, he found joy in helping others, in bringing hope to those lost in their own darkness. Emma, who had opened a new door in Mark's life, was no longer just a companion, but a lighthouse illuminating his path. Looking back, Mark realized that on this journey, he had not only rediscovered the meaning of life, but also found the light he thought he had lost forever, the light of love and compassion. Part 4. The Confession. A quiet winter afternoon wrapped around the mansion like a thick, snow-covered blanket. Snowflakes drifted lightly outside the window, settling over the vast landscape. Inside the warm living room, the flames in the fireplace danced across the dark wooden walls, creating a cozy, intimate atmosphere. On the plush sofa, Mark sat silently, holding a cup of cocoa that he had yet to sip. Though his eyes could no longer see, they carried a contemplative, thoughtful expression. Emma sat beside him, one leg crossed over the other, leaning into the armrest of the sofa. She observed Mark intently, sensing something unusual about him. Unlike his usual self, witty and relaxed in conversation, today Mark seemed to be wrestling with his own thoughts. In the flickering firelight, Emma could feel the intensity of the emotions stirring within him. "Emma," Mark finally spoke, breaking the silence. His voice was low, carrying a slight tremor, as if what he was about to say required immense courage. He placed the cup of cocoa on the table and clasped his hands tightly on his knees, trying to steady himself. "You know, I've never been good at expressing my feelings, especially after everything changed." Mark paused, taking a deep breath as if gathering the last fragments of his bravery. But today I can't keep this inside any longer. Emma leaned forward slightly, her eyes bright with curiosity but filled with patience. You can tell me anything, Mark. I'm here to listen, she replied gently. Mark gave a faint smile, though a storm of emotions churned within him. Emma, I can't see your face. I can't know what you look like when you smile, when you're deep in thought, or even when you're upset. But I don't need to see to know that you're the most beautiful person I've ever met, Mark said, his voice rough but deeply sincere. You've made my life more meaningful than I could ever imagine. And I think I've fallen in love with you. Mark's words hung in the air, resonating like a sacred confession. He fell silent, his heart pounding in his chest as he awaited Emma's response. In that moment, the world seemed to stop, leaving only the crackling sound of the firewood and their breaths. Emma froze for a few seconds, her eyes slowly welling with tears. She couldn't believe what she had just heard from Mark, a strong, once-guarded man now baring his soul to her. A gentle smile spread across her face. She placed her cup of cocoa on the table and softly took his hands in hers. Mark, she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. I love you too. From the moment I first met you, I saw someone far stronger than you give yourself credit for. You haven't let the darkness overshadow your heart and determination, and that's what makes me love you. Mark was astonished by the warmth of her small hands. Slowly he raised his hand to her face, letting his fingers trace the contours he had only imagined in his mind. Thank you, he said, his voice trembling with happiness. You've brought light back into my life, even when I couldn't see it. Emma squeezed his hands tighter. Mark, I don't love you for what you once had or who you once were. I love you for who you are now, for your heart, and for the way you always strive to be a better version of yourself. They sat together enveloped by the soft glow of the fire, as if the light itself bore witness to their unspoken vows. In that moment, Mark realized he was no longer the lonely man, drowning in darkness. Emma wasn't just the light guiding him. She was the reason he found meaning in life again. And in Emma's heart, she knew this love didn't stem from appearances or perfection. It came from the imperfect pieces of both of them, coming together to create something beautiful and whole. Part 5. The Christmas Miracle. This Christmas Eve had arrived, bringing with it the stillness of winter and the magical beauty of snowflakes drifting softly outside. Mark's mansion was more dazzlingly decorated than ever. The warm glow of golden lights wrapped around the large Christmas tree in the living room filled the space with a comforting warmth. Candles scattered across tables and the flickering fire in the hearth created a romantic, dreamy atmosphere. Mark, dressed in an elegant suit, stood at the center of the room, his heart pounding with nervous anticipation. He had spent days preparing for this moment, but now it felt as if everything was condensed into a single breath of expectation. To him, Emma wasn't just the person who had changed his life. She was his guiding light, a miracle he never thought he would find. Emma entered the room, her soft brown hair cascading over her shoulders, her eyes lighting up as she took in the romantic scene before her. She couldn't hide her amazement. Mark, did you do all of this? She asked, her voice soft as a whisper. Mark stepped closer to Emma, taking her hands in his, feeling the familiar warmth he had come to treasure. Emma, he began, his voice trembling slightly but filled with determination. Since you came into my life, you've given me not just hope, but a reason to live in love. You are the only light I can feel in my darkness. He knelt down, pulling a small box from his pocket. When he opened it, a ring sparkled in the candlelight, simple yet elegant, much like the love he felt for her. Emma, Mark said, his deep voice steady and sincere, you've brought light back into my life. Will you marry me? Emma stood still for a moment, her eyes brimming with tears of emotion. She nodded softly at first, but then her voice rang clear, full of feeling. Yes, Mark, I will. As those words left her lips, Mark felt something extraordinary happening within him. A warm sensation spread through his body, and then he began to see faint glimmers of light. First, the flickering glow of the candles, then blurry outlines of the Christmas tree, and even the snowflakes falling outside the window. Mark closed his eyes and opened them again, as if to confirm that what he was seeing was real. "Emma," he whispered, his voice trembling. I I can see a little now." Emma stared at him, initially confused, but as realization dawned, she brought her hands to her mouth, unable to contain her surprise and joy. "Mark, are you serious? You can really see?" Mark nodded, his eyes fixed on the images becoming clearer before him. He saw Emma's soft brown hair, the warm glow on her face, and the radiant smile he had never seen before, but always imagined. "Emma," Mark said, his voice choked with emotion. "You're the woman I used to see every day through the cafe window. I've always dreamed of you, and now I know you're not just a dream. You're my destiny." Emma froze, memories flooding back of the days when she often felt someone's gaze on her through the cafe window. "Mark, it was you. You were the one sitting in the corner." Mark smiled, his gaze tender, like the first rays of light on a cold winter morning. "Yes, I always dreamed of talking to you, but then the accident happened, and I thought I had lost that chance forever. But now I realize fate brought you back to me in a way I could never have imagined." Emma couldn't hold back any longer. She threw her arms around Mark, tears of happiness streaming down her face. "Mark, I believe it's destiny too. I couldn't be happier knowing that you were the one who was always there, waiting for me." They stood there, holding each other tightly in the gentle glow of the fire, while snow continued to fall outside like winter's blessing. In that moment, they both knew they had found the most precious thing in life. Not just love, but the miracle of hope and belief in wonders on Christmas Eve. Are you still following the story? Do you believe in the miracles that Christmas brings? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Part 6. A New Beginning. The next day, the gentle warmth of early winter sunlight streamed through the hospital windows, cutting through the cold. Mark sat in the examination room, his heart brimming with hope and anticipation. For the first time in a year of living in darkness, he felt light return to his world, even if only faintly. "This is truly remarkable," the doctor said after completing a series of tests. "Your vision is recovering significantly. We believe this is due to the brain's self-healing process, combined with a reduction in swelling in the brain tissue. This is a rare case, but not impossible." Mark listened and nodded slightly. Yet deep down, he knew the miracle didn't come from medicine. It was Emma's love, a love that had pulled him out of the darkness, not only from his eyes, but from his soul. He smiled, feeling a strong conviction that everything was changing for the better, not just because of his vision, but because of the love he now had. A week later, on New Year's Eve, their wedding took place in a warm and magical setting. The hilltop mansion shone brightly once again, but this time not just from the lights, but from the happiness radiating from everyone's hearts. The garden was blanketed in snow, golden lights wrapped around the large Christmas tree twinkling in the night. Mark stood before the rows of guests wearing a sleek black suit. His heart pounded as the music began. When Emma entered, everything around him seemed to stop. For the first time, Mark saw her clearly, dressed in a pristine white gown that sparkled under the lights. Her brown hair, adorned with artificial snowflakes, gave her a beauty that was both ethereal and gentle. Emma walked toward him, her eyes glistening with joy. She never looked away from Mark, the man who had changed her life, just as she had changed his. Mark tried to stay composed, but as Emma stopped in front of him, he couldn't hold back his tears. "You're so beautiful," Mark whispered, his voice trembling. He took Emma's hands, feeling the familiar warmth. "I don't know how to put it into words. I don't just see you. I feel everything you've brought into my life. You are the greatest miracle of my life." The wedding ceremony unfolded in an atmosphere filled with love and joy. As they exchanged vows, Mark held Emma's hands, his eyes never leaving hers. "Emma," he said, his deep voice warm and filled with emotion, "you are my Christmas miracle. Because of you, I found light again, not just in my eyes, but in my heart." Emma smiled, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Mark, you're the one who's shown me that love can heal everything. I promise to stand by your side, whether in light or darkness." Their first kiss as husband and wife was not just a promise, but an affirmation of eternal love. Applause and cheers erupted from the guests, blending with the distant sound of New Year's bells. That night, Mark and Emma stood by the large window, gazing out at the snowy garden under the moonlight. Hand in hand, they felt the peace and completeness that love had brought. "Emma," Mark said softly, turning to look at her, "thank you for not giving up on me, for believing that light can still exist in darkness. I promise to love you, protect you, and do everything to keep us happy." Emma rested her head on his shoulder and whispered, "And I promise to always be your light, no matter where we are or what we face." On that New Year's Eve, with snow gently falling outside and the warm glow within, the two began a new chapter of their lives, a new beginning filled with love, hope, and miracles. Thank you for following this story. What did you think of it? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Wishing you a joyful and blessed Christmas. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to never miss meaningful stories like this one. Like and share the story with your friends. Ethan Carter, at 34 years old, embodies the ideal image of a successful millionaire. With intelligence, confidence, and a vast fortune inherited from Carter Industries, he is seen as the epitome of perfection. Yet beneath this glamorous facade, Ethan faces an overwhelming pressure: his grandfather's will. According to the will, if Ethan does not marry before turning 35, the entire family fortune will be transferred to Nathan, his cousin, bound by blood but filled with envy and schemes against him. To Ethan, this condition feels like a trap. He has never believed that marriage should be dictated by a legal document or by the ambition to inherit wealth. He cherishes his single, free lifestyle, steering clear of binding relationships. However, his grandfather, once a powerful industry figure, seemed intent on controlling Ethan's life even beyond the grave. Nathan, the cousin, is not one to sit idly and wait for his chance. For years, he has seen Ethan as the greatest obstacle to his path toward power and wealth. Nathan knows that eliminating Ethan is the key to claiming the vast fortune for himself. Thus, he devises a meticulous plan, staging a car accident to take Ethan's life. On that fateful night, Ethan's car lost control on a treacherous mountain road. The horrifying crash sent the vehicle plummeting into a ravine. Miraculously, Ethan survived thanks to his seatbelt and the car's safety features. However, the incident left him not only with physical pain, but also a stark warning. Nathan was willing to go to any lengths to claim the inheritance. Lying on his hospital bed, Ethan realized he could no longer live under the naive assumption that the law or ethics would shield him from Nathan. He needed a plan, a strategy he alone could control. So he made a bold decision to fake a disability. The image of a vibrant, strong young millionaire was replaced with that of a frail man reliant on a wheelchair for mobility. Ethan understood that this facade would not only mislead Nathan, but also buy him time to prepare for the ultimate showdown. Yet behind the composed gaze and polite smiles, Ethan remained a man who refused to be subdued. Quietly, he calculated every move, not just to retain his wealth, but also to protect his very life. The battle between Ethan and Nathan was not merely a game of power, but the greatest test of Ethan's life. He would face tough decisions, treacherous schemes, and truths he never anticipated. But Ethan knew one thing for certain: he would not allow himself to fail. Welcome to today's meaningful story. Let us know where you are from to help us see how far this story has spread across the world. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss any of our inspiring tales. In another corner of the city, Anna Bennett faced the greatest nightmare of her life. Her father, John Bennett, once a talented businessman, now stood on the brink of prosecution and imprisonment due to massive debts from a failed investment project. This financial collapse not only took away his entire career, but also pushed the Bennett family into a desperate situation. Anna, John Bennett's only daughter, was a young woman full of strength, resilience, and self-sacrifice. Since childhood, she had been raised by her father with love and a deep belief in the value of perseverance. Now facing the imminent loss of the father she had always admired and loved, Anna felt more powerless than ever. Every effort she made seemed to lead to a dead end. Anna had Ryan Harper, her longtime boyfriend, who had been by her side through all of life's ups and downs. Their love was deep, but neither of them had the financial means to rescue her family from this crisis. Ryan tried his best, borrowing from friends and looking for new job opportunities, but their efforts felt like drops in the ocean. The mounting pressure grew unbearable, and Anna began to realize that their love alone might not be enough to overcome this hardship. One day at an opulent charity gala that Anna attended in the hope of finding help, she caught the attention of Ethan Carter. Even seated in a wheelchair, Ethan exuded an aura of confidence and power. No one could have guessed that he was quietly searching for the right person to fulfill his own plans. Anna had no idea that her presence had immediately drawn Ethan's attention. In a brief moment, he saw in her a unique woman, strong, decisive, yet carrying a gentle and selfless heart. After overhearing her story through a short conversation with her friends at the gala, Ethan realized this was the perfect opportunity to execute his plan. The following day, Ethan arranged to meet Anna in private. To her astonishment, he made a straightforward proposal. "I'll pay off all your father's debts. In return, you must marry me, indefinitely and without asking any questions." Anna froze in disbelief. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. A stranger, though wealthy and powerful, was making an offer so unexpected and calculated. True to her strong sense of pride, she immediately refused. "I'm not a commodity to be traded, and I will not sell my love for money," Anna replied firmly, her eyes flashing with indignation. However, Ethan remained composed. He had anticipated her immediate rejection, but also understood that the weight of her circumstances might make her reconsider. Before leaving, he left her with a final message. "You don't need to answer now, but if you change your mind, contact me. I'm not joking." In the days that followed, the Bennett family's situation worsened. Creditors relentlessly threatened them, and John Bennett sank deeper into despair. The image of the strong father Anna had once known was now reduced to a frail man, directionless and burdened with guilt for plunging his family into crisis. Ryan, despite his unwavering support, could do little more. He tried to console Anna by assuring her that things would get better, but his own helplessness was evident. Anna felt the crushing weight of responsibility. She wasn't just facing the prospect of losing her father, but also the despair of realizing that the man she loved couldn't provide the help they desperately needed. Finally, after a long night of contemplation, Anna made the hardest decision of her life. She knew Ethan wasn't the man she loved, and this marriage would be nothing more than a transaction. But to save her father, she had no other choice. The next morning, Anna went to meet Ethan at his mansion. Her eyes reflected exhaustion, but also determination. "I agree," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. "I will marry you, but on one condition. You must not interfere with my personal life." Ethan nodded, a faint, unreadable smile playing on his lips. "The deal is done. Welcome to my world, Anna." Anna entered Ethan Carter's luxurious mansion, where everything radiated opulence and power. The estate was perched on a hill, with a marble-paved entrance and walls adorned with priceless artwork. Yet amidst the grandeur, Anna felt more out of place than ever. Life in this mansion felt like a gilded cage, where she constantly had to remind herself that this marriage was nothing more than a transaction. Ethan, maintaining his pretense of being disabled, projected an image of frailty in Anna's eyes. He remained in his wheelchair at all times, carefully concealing the truth about his health. Occasionally, he orchestrated unexpected situations to test Anna's sincerity, wanting to determine if her care stemmed from genuine compassion or was simply part of the bargain. Despite these manipulations, he kept his distance, avoiding unnecessary conversations and silently observing her actions. Anna, though lacking romantic feelings for Ethan, cared for him with remarkable tenderness and dedication. Every morning, she would wheel him out to the garden behind the mansion, ensuring he could enjoy the fresh air. She checked on his meals, monitored his medication, and ensured his comfort, even when he rarely asked for her help. Once, when Ethan deliberately dropped his handkerchief, Anna gently picked it up and placed it back in his hand with a warm smile. "You need to keep your hands warm. It's a bit chilly today," she said softly. These small but heartfelt gestures left Ethan with a growing sense of guilt. He knew Anna had sacrificed so much to step into this marriage, and her care wasn't born out of obligation or greed, but from her inherently kind and empathetic nature. Despite the numerous challenges Ethan subtly placed to test her sincerity, Anna consistently proved herself impervious to the temptations of wealth and power. Once, Ethan handed her a limitless credit card and said, "You can use this whenever you want, for anything you desire." Anna calmly pushed the card back toward him and replied firmly, "I only need enough to take care of my father and cover basic necessities. I don't need anything more." Her resolute attitude left Ethan genuinely surprised. Most women he had encountered were easily enchanted by his immense fortune, but Anna was different. Even without loving him, she fulfilled her responsibilities with grace and integrity. Yet Anna maintained a clear distance from Ethan. She avoided any intimate gestures he occasionally tried to create, reminding herself that this marriage was a deal and allowing emotions to complicate it would only make things worse. Deep down, she still clung to the memory of Ryan, her former lover, and felt pangs of guilt every time she thought of him. During the quiet days in the mansion, Ethan gradually realized that Anna was more than just a wife in name. Her patience and gentleness began to chip away at the emotional walls he had built. However, Ethan continued to guard his secret. He knew that if the truth about his fabricated disability came to light too soon, everything could fall apart, and he might lose the chance for Anna to genuinely trust him. Life at the mansion carried on in a complex stillness. Ethan persisted in testing Anna's loyalty, while Anna, despite keeping her emotional distance, cared for him as a true partner would. Through these trials, neither realized that their transactional relationship was leading them toward an unforeseen turning point. Nathan couldn't conceal his fury upon learning that Ethan had gotten married and met the conditions to retain his inheritance. His jealousy and ambition burned brighter than ever. He didn't just want the wealth, he wanted to destroy Ethan, the man he believed had stolen every opportunity from him. Realizing time was running out, Nathan immediately put a devious plan into motion to defeat Ethan once and for all. First, Nathan hired a private investigator to closely monitor Ethan and Anna's lives. He sought to uncover any weakness to bring Ethan down. Images of their lavish lifestyle were quickly captured, from extravagant dinners in the opulent mansion to Anna's private moments. Suspicious of Ethan faking his disability, Nathan instructed the investigator to track him closely, searching for evidence to expose the truth. Not stopping there, Nathan leveraged his connections to spread malicious rumors about Anna. Tabloid newspapers and social media exploded with articles insinuating that Anna was a gold digger who married Ethan solely for his wealth. These articles even fabricated claims that she had betrayed Ryan to chase after money. "A young woman with ambition abandons love to step into the world of the rich," the headlines read. These stories quickly went viral, drawing public attention and triggering a wave of criticism. Anna, unaccustomed to public scrutiny, felt the heavy burden of judgment. Curious stares and whispered gossip followed her every time she stepped outside, leaving her feeling utterly isolated. Despite the pressure, Anna tried to remain calm. She refrained from telling Ethan about the rumors or the suspicion-filled gazes she endured. She knew he was busy with his own plans to protect himself and his inheritance. Instead, she told herself, "I'm doing this for my father. What others think doesn't matter." Ethan, however, through his quiet observations, began to realize that Anna was under far more pressure than he had imagined. Though she said nothing, he saw the exhaustion and hurt in her eyes. For the first time, he felt a pang of guilt for dragging her into this battle. One evening, Ethan took Anna out onto the mansion's balcony. He said, "I know what people are saying about you. If you want to leave, I won't stop you." Anna looked at him, her eyes shining with determination. "I chose to stay, and I won't change my decision because of a few words from strangers, but I hope you'll keep your promise, not to let anyone ruin my family." Ethan nodded, feeling for the first time that a mutual trust was forming between them. However, he also knew Nathan wouldn't give up so easily. New schemes were undoubtedly on the horizon, and Ethan had to prepare for the battles ahead. Under the moonlight, Ethan and Anna stood side by side. Neither of them realized that amidst the trials and conspiracies closing in, a deeper connection between them was slowly taking root. The soft hues of the setting sun filtered through the windows of Ethan Carter's luxurious mansion, casting a warm glow across his study. Anna, carrying a stack of documents in her arms, approached to place them on his desk. She knocked lightly but heard no response. Assuming Ethan might be out, she gently pushed the door open and stepped inside. What she saw made her heart stop. Ethan, the man she believed to be disabled, stood upright, moving naturally around his desk without a wheelchair. Anna's hands clenched tightly around the stack of documents, a whirlwind of betrayal and confusion surging within her. You, you can stand? She asked, her voice trembling, her eyes brimming with hurt. Ethan froze mid-step and turned to face her. His expression shifted from shock to a somber realization. He knew there was no hiding it any longer. Letting out a deep sigh, he walked back to his chair and slowly sat down. Yes, I can. I'm not disabled, he admitted, his voice heavy with sorrow. Anna stared at him, her eyes filled with disappointment. Why? Why would you lie to me? Didn't you think I deserved to know the truth? Ethan remained silent for a moment, as if searching for the right words. Finally, he spoke, his tone deliberate and laden with emotion. Anna, you have every right to be angry. I deceived you, but I never did it to hurt you. It all started with Nathan. He tried to kill me to claim the inheritance. After narrowly surviving, I realized I had to protect myself and my family's legacy. Pretending to be weak was the only way to make him drop his guard. Anna's gaze remained fixed on him, her heart torn between anger and empathy. Ethan paused, his eyes lowering to the floor. Anna, it wasn't just about faking a disability. I used you too. I made you part of my plan. I needed a wife to secure the inheritance, and I dragged you into a marriage you never wanted. I know it was wrong, but I had no other choice. His voice softened, and for the first time, Anna saw a vulnerability in Ethan's usually cold demeanor. You don't know what it's like to live my life. Everything revolves around money, power, and manipulative relationships. I've faced schemes from my own family, and I couldn't trust anyone. Ethan's confession cut through Anna like a sharp blade. She had never imagined that behind his steely exterior was a man carrying such heavy burdens. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Why deceive me? Anna asked, her voice quieter now but still tinged with disappointment. Ethan raised his head, his eyes meeting hers. Because I was afraid. At first I didn't trust you, but when I started to, I feared that if you knew the truth, you'd leave. I couldn't bear the thought of losing you, even just as a companion. You're the only person I can trust right now. Anna stood silently, her heart a chaotic mix of emotions. She had every right to leave, to blame Ethan, but the image of him standing alone, bearing all this pain and danger, stirred a sense of compassion within her that she couldn't suppress. I used to think you were just a cold and calculating man, Anna said, her voice trembling slightly. But now I see you're just a human being trying to protect what matters most. Ethan looked at her, his eyes filled with a mix of surprise and gratitude. Anna took a deep breath, steadying herself. I am deeply disappointed, Ethan, but I won't leave. Not because of any obligation, but because I see that you need someone to stand by you, and I can't turn my back on you now. A wave of warmth swept through Ethan as he listened to her words. He realized how fortunate he was to have Anna in his life, even under these circumstances. Anna turned and left the room, her thoughts weighed down by the revelation. Yet in her heart, a faint glimmer of light began to shine. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew they needed each other to weather the storms ahead. What do you think of this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this story with others. Nathan decided to hold a press conference to bring Ethan down. The event was held in a luxurious hotel in the heart of the city. The flashing lights of cameras and the clicking sounds of reporters setting up their equipment created an atmosphere of tension. On stage, Nathan appeared with a smug look, his perfectly tailored suit enhancing his image as a victor. Today, Nathan began, his voice confident and resonant, I will unveil a shocking truth about the man you have all admired, Ethan Carter. A truth that, once revealed, will make you rethink everything you know about him. Nathan continued to elaborate on Ethan's alleged deception, accusing him of faking a disability to manipulate the public and secure his inheritance. He presented a series of carefully edited images and videos, painting Ethan as a cunning fraud. Ethan Carter does not deserve his position, and I, Nathan Carter, am the only rightful heir. Below the stage, murmurs spread among the reporters, who furiously scribbled notes and snapped photos. But just as the tension peaked, Ethan entered the room. He appeared in his familiar wheelchair, with Anna by his side, her eyes resolute and unwavering. Ethan surveyed the room, moving steadily toward the stage. His calm voice cut through the murmurs. "Nathan, you've gone too far this time." The room fell silent, all eyes turning to Ethan. Anna gave him a reassuring glance before stepping up onto the stage to stand beside him. "Nathan," Ethan said, his voice firm and composed, "you thought today would be the day you topple me, but you've forgotten that I'm not as weak as you think. Let me reveal the truths you've tried to hide." Ethan signaled to his team, and the large screen behind him lit up, displaying the evidence he and his team had meticulously gathered. The footage revealed Nathan secretly meeting with former employees of Carter Industries, negotiating large sums in exchange for internal information. An audio recording captured Nathan explicitly plotting Ethan's assassination, sending shockwaves through the room. "I have spent my life protecting my family's legacy," Ethan declared, his gaze fixed on Nathan. "But you, Nathan, have sought only to destroy it for your selfish ambitions?" Nathan, visibly agitated, tried to interrupt. "This is all lies. None of it is true." But the evidence was undeniable. Reporters bombarded Nathan with questions, demanding explanations for his exposed misconduct. Anna stood beside Ethan, her expression firm yet calm, though her voice carried the weight of righteous anger. "Nathan Carter not only betrayed his family, but also tried to use me to attack Ethan. But we refused to stay silent. This is the time for justice." As the evidence continued to roll out, the room's opinion shifted decisively. Nathan's desperate attempts to refute the claims fell on deaf ears. Representatives from the police, invited by Ethan, stepped forward to announce that Nathan was under investigation for crimes including attempted murder and corruption. Handcuffs clicked onto Nathan's wrists, and he was led away amidst the stunned silence of the reporters. For a moment, the room remained quiet until a few scattered claps erupted, gradually building into a round of applause. Ethan turned to Anna, feeling the weight of her support and trust. She offered a faint smile as if to say that their efforts had been worth it. As Nathan was escorted out, Ethan sat tall, his eyes gleaming with renewed confidence. "Not only have I preserved my inheritance," he told the reporters, "but I have reclaimed my honor. And more importantly, I know I've done what's right." The press conference ended with Ethan's unequivocal triumph. He had not only safeguarded his rightful legacy, but also demonstrated his resilience and courage in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges. And for the first time, with Anna by his side, he no longer felt alone. After the dramatic press conference, life for Ethan and Anna slowly began to return to normal. Nathan was prosecuted with a slew of charges, and Ethan not only retained his inheritance, but also restored his reputation. More importantly, the relationship between Ethan and Anna began to deepen in unexpected ways. In the days that followed, Ethan continued his disciplined lifestyle, engrossed in work and plans to rebuild his family's legacy. However, he began to dedicate more time to Anna. No longer maintaining the distance he once did, Ethan started sharing stories of his childhood and memories of his grandfather, the man he deeply respected. These small anecdotes revealed a warmer, more compassionate side of Ethan that Anna had never seen before. Anna, too, underwent a transformation. No longer reserved and distant as she had been at the start of their marriage, she began to take small but meaningful steps toward building a real connection. Every morning, she prepared breakfast for Ethan before he left for work. Quietly, she adjusted the decor of the mansion, adding touches that made the space feel more like a home. These changes didn't go unnoticed by Ethan, who felt the mansion transform from a cold fortress into a place filled with warmth and life. One afternoon, as golden sunlight bathed the garden, Ethan found Anna tending to the flower beds she had recently planted. He approached her, his gaze contemplative but tender. "Anna," he called softly, drawing her attention, "I used to think this marriage was just a transaction, but now I realize it has given me something far more valuable than wealth or status." Anna smiled faintly, though her eyes betrayed a hint of uncertainty. "Ethan, I'm grateful for everything you've done for my family, But she hesitated, searching for the right words. Ethan interrupted her gently. Anna, I don't want you to feel indebted to me anymore. From now on, everything between us is not about obligation. It's about choice. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Opening it, he revealed a simple yet elegant ring, the metal gleaming softly in the sunlight. I want to propose to you, not because of the will or because I need a wife. I want to propose because I love you. All I want now is to have you by my side, not as a temporary companion, but forever. Anna froze, overwhelmed by a mix of surprise and emotion. Her heart, once anchored by memories of Ryan, whom she had thought was her one true love, had now made room for Ethan. He had shown her that he was not just a husband by circumstance, but a man capable of protecting and cherishing her. Ethan, she whispered, her voice trembling as tears glistened in her eyes. I choose you too, not because of my family, but because of me. Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger, his eyes shining with a happiness he could no longer hide. He pulled her close, his hand clasping hers tightly. One day Anna stood in the living room, her fingers lightly resting on a newly framed photograph. It was their first picture together, taken during a celebratory event marking the revival of Carter Industries. She gazed at the photo, her lips curling into a gentle smile as warmth filled her heart, something she had never anticipated in this unconventional marriage. Ethan entered the room and saw her lost in thought. Anna, what's on your mind? He asked, his tone soft and curious. Anna turned to him, her eyes filled with sincerity. I'm thinking about everything we've been through and what lies ahead. I never thought a transactional marriage could bring me so many emotions. Ethan stepped closer, wrapping his arms around her from behind. I never imagined finding love in such an unusual way either. But Anna, I'm certain of one thing. You're the woman who completes me. Anna felt his warmth, her heart racing yet comforted. I believe we can face anything together, Ethan, because now I'm not just your wife, I'm your true partner. Ethan smiled, a rare and genuine expression. Then let's build a better life together, not for the legacy or the fame, but for us. As time passed, they built not only their love, but also a shared vision for the future. Together, they poured their efforts into expanding Carter Industries with sustainable innovations that gave back to society. They became an admired couple, not just for their success, but for the sincere love they shared. Their story doesn't end here, as life continues with challenges and joys awaiting them. But one thing is certain, Ethan and Anna discovered something more valuable than all else. Love is not just a destination, but a journey. Thank you for following our story. What score would you give this tale from 1 to 10? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Your feedback means the world to us. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like, and share this story with others.